Have you ever wondered what the world would be like without communication? Will there be society or human interaction? And would human existence even be possible? If we assume that it is, what would the quality of life be without it? It seems impossible to conceive of the world without communication, since communication is a fundamental aspect of human existence and interaction. Looking at its etymological roots, the Latin word communicare means to share or to make common. It was used in the ancient times to pertain to the act of sharing thoughts, feelings, ideas, and making information common among people. We see connection at the core of communication. We communicate to share our very being with others, to form relationships, to form communities. Unsurprisingly, community has the same etymological roots as communicare. Community is from the Latin word communitas, which refers to a sense of togetherness. Like communicare, communitas is derived from the Latin word communis, which means common. Building communities, after all, rely on the shared experiences and connections that bind people together, creating a sense of belonging and mutual support. How else can we express our needs, thoughts, and emotions if not through communication? How do we create and develop our mores and laws without it? How do we engage in learning and education without communicating our beliefs and engaging in discourse to evaluate their strength and validity? Communication is central to our knowledge-building practices, to which intellectual and societal progress heavily bank upon. Given the indispensable role of communication to human existence and interaction, it is only imperative that we communicate effectively. But what does it mean to communicate effectively? If the goal of communication is to bring people together, effective communication must center on not merely conveying a message, but conveying it well, in a manner that is clear, responsible, and appropriate. One subfield in applied ethics deals with the ethical dimensions of communication. It inquires into the ethical principles governing processes and practices in all modes of communicative interaction. It analyzes and criticizes norms, moral values, moral beliefs, and policies to address existing barriers and challenges to effective communication. Ultimately, it attempts to create a set of rules and principles by which people ought to communicate. In this discussion, we will explore the key elements of effective and ethical communication. Any communication model looks into the relationship among several aspects of the communication process, including the sender, message, channel, receiver, and feedback. Other important aspects that are also considered are purpose, noise, barriers, context, encoding, and decoding. To briefly explain, the sender is the one who initiates the communication process by delivering an encoded message to the receiver through a channel or medium. Whether the message was decoded and understood as intended by the sender can be determined through feedback from the receiver. In ensuring that one communicates effectively, the communication process has to be guided by a clear understanding of the intended purpose in communication, because one's purpose influences how a message is delivered. Additionally, its effectiveness can also be affected by the context and circumstances in which communication occurs, which is why it is also crucial to be mindful of the potential noise and barriers that can affect the clarity and accuracy of the message, or even render communication impossible. But where does ethics come in? You see, our ethical considerations in communication govern the whole communication process. This includes our moral values and principles about communication, as well as existing guidelines and policies surrounding it. It is difficult to conceive of effective communication without awareness and attention to the core values aligned with ethical communication. Because if the aim of communication is to share information, produce knowledge, strengthen understanding, and build relationships in communities, communication must be based on certain values that will lead to the fulfillment of these goals. The most fundamental value in effective and ethical communication is truth. This ensures that communication will be driven by an attitude of honesty and integrity, that communication will be based on transparent and accurate information, and that communication will not make use of deceptive, misleading, and manipulative practices. Valuing truth in communication is essential in building trust in our relationships. But truth should be accompanied by another fundamental value: clarity. What we communicate must be easily understood. It must be expressed clearly, concisely, and coherently. Valuing clarity helps us avoid confusion, misunderstanding, and even conflict. Another fundamental value in effective and ethical communication is humanity. This ensures that dignity and respect are upheld in our communication practices. This means treating others as our equals, acknowledging their rights and freedoms, and valuing their contribution in the communication process by allowing the space for diversity and open dialogue. By valuing humanity in communication, we become more mindful of our privilege and biases, more sensitive to the needs of others, and more cognizant of the barriers to communication, such as language and cultural differences, thereby allowing us to better navigate our relationships. Responsibility is also fundamental to effective and ethical communication. Aligned with the values of truth, clarity, and humanity, responsibility ensures that we take ownership of what we communicate and how we communicate them. This means being aware of one's role in communication, being mindful of the consequences of communication, and being accountable for the information we share. When one ends up transmitting false or unverified information, responsibility entails being answerable for these mistakes and correcting them. Valuing responsibility in communication helps us develop credibility and trust in our relationships. What I have laid down so far are just some of the fundamental values in effective and ethical communication. While we can immediately see their roles in interpersonal relationships, what they look like and how they are actualized may be different once we explore the different forms, modes, and areas of communicative interaction. Nevertheless, it is clear that our ethical considerations take center stage in our analysis of communication practices. And through the tools of analysis in philosophy and ethics, it is our hope that we can create a world where communication remains a force for genuine understanding and societal progress.